Starting off smiling is good, and today is one of those days. I am John T. Harrell, CFO of Zen Ledger. I have with me the illustrious Michelle Abbs. We are in the same town, and if on another day, another in-person panel, we would have probably done this in person. But it's a pleasure to have you.
That's right. It's wonderful to be here and always wonderful to be a part of the same event that you are. So being able to do this like one-to-one is extra special.
Excellent. So I want to waste no time in getting into the meat and potatoes of this kind of topic, but I do want to introduce or have you introduce yourself, and I can touch on myself very briefly.
Great. So yeah, my name is Michelle Abbs. I am the founder of an educational community called Web3 Equity. And our mission is to ensure that Web3 is gender equitable. So we do that by educating and onboarding more women to come into the Web3 space and engaging our male allies so that they understand, how they can help that mission be achieved as well. We launched just over a year ago here in Miami. And as part of our launch, we have an NFT collection. And so that collection is named the Tuttle Tribe, which is this is your fun Jeopardy fact for the day. That's named after Julia Tuttle. And she is the only woman to have founded a major US city. So I have some firsthand experience about crypto taxes, both on the business and professional side from that experience.
So amazing. I feel like I've learned a lot already, and I hope everyone who's listening in has already learned more. So please, Google or Chat GPT, get it ready because Michelle is dropping gems. I purchased one of the NFTs, and so I'm a proud owner. I guess I'm in the Tuttle Tribe. My name is my name is John T. Harrell, CFO of Zen Ledger. We simplify crypto taxes with software, and so think of us as TurboTax for crypto. As I mentioned, let's dive in. So Web3 opportunities for women. The first pillar is to create more Web3 opportunities. And Michelle, you're at the forefront. Admittedly, as I go around conferences, just left ETH Denver, Miami Web3, I don't see enough women. How can we help create more opportunities?
Yeah. So I think, this is such a moment of call to action that this moment in time will eclipse us very soon. And I feel extremely urgent to get it right now. We've seen what has happened in past iterations of when technology or new systems are created, and when they're created by only one group of people, we suffer some of the challenges further down the line. So I used to work with founders who were raising venture capital, and female founders know that actually in 2022, less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to women. So that is a reflection of the fact that back in the 1960s, a group of white men sat around a table and wrote the rules of venture capital. And then, why are we surprised 50 plus years later when, that system seems to benefit one group of people? Right now, we're building the basic infrastructure of Web3. And we must make sure that more women, people of color, non-binary, folks who are just underrepresented in general have their voices heard and are building in this particular moment, because this is going to set the course, for, what comes and the technology that will shape our day-to-day lives in the future. So women must be involved in this moment. And I think there are various ways that they can get engaged. And I like to make sure that we really, have these action verbs and we parse out the different pillars of ways that they can make moves into Web3, because I want to make sure they know that it's beyond just buying a Bitcoin. Like, there are a lot of ways that you can enter into Web3. So the first one that you mentioned is create. So when we think about that pillar of creating in Web3, we're talking about the folks who create digital assets. So content creators, artists, musicians, podcasters, really now anyone who can use AI and experiment and, create something that they might want to share with the world. People are able to put those digital assets on chain and allow for tradability of that into the future, allow for wallet ownership of that, and that just unlocks various future opportunities. So that first pillar of create is really a call to action for any content creators that are out there.
I think as I think about that call to action, and what you've just mentioned, that the opportunity is there, the technology is there. We have to create these opportunities. I think about the statistics that are a bit sobering, right? We thought that, post Me Too, post Black Lives Matter, that we had a lot more focus on issues related to underrepresented groups and equity in general, but we still have, I would say, a long way to go, which is an often statement. But we have a long way to go in terms of we are now looking at the numbers, and the numbers are pretty sobering. So BCG, Boston Consulting Group, did a study about 2 weeks ago, and the title was Web3 already has a gender diversity problem, and the research uncovered that only 13% of Web3 startups include a female founder. And of the folks who have raised 100 million or more, the percentage with female founding teams is zero. I was floored. I didn't think it was that low because frankly, I see a few notable VCs, women, that have spun out on their own entrepreneurially and have started their own firms, but they're just assembling capital. And those headlines are so few that, like, I guess you can think it's more than it is if you just look at the few that are kind of out there and have raised some money, but it's just not enough.
Yeah. Well, so actually, I know the founders of People of Crypto. They completed that survey with Boston Consulting Group, and I had the opportunity to be one of the respondents for that. So that survey, I think, is incredibly important body of work as we start. This isn't just someone pointing their finger up and going, "Oh, there's a problem." No, there's data that shows this is a problem. The other thing from that study that I found fascinating was the average ticket size for what those founders were able to raise when you slice that for gender. This was like a startling number. So female founders raise on average in Web3 $3 million compared to their male counterparts who raise 30 million. So not only are we getting less overall, there's less of us represented, we get less capital to do things with. And I mean, I feel lucky enough to know some of those founders who are part of that small percentage and who have gotten that check size, but they don't have the same flexibility and runway as some of these other founders. And I think that comes from implicit bias, right? And investing is pattern matching. This is people who are taking a risk, they are gambling their money, and the way they're making that decision is, where has my money gotten me a return in the past? And then I'm going to continue to do those types of things. Well, if in the past, in venture capital, sort of Web 1 and Web 2 models, you have 98% of that capital going to male founders, you're pattern matching to a set that already, counts out women. And so we just see this problem repeated. And you're right, we've got a long way to go. And I think sometimes we think like, oh yeah, it's 2023, like women, like you guys, it's all taken care of, right? Like we're good. No, we're not. And this Web3 is going to shape all of our lives. And if we can really focus on getting it right in Web3, I think there's incredible, trickle down impact that will positively impact future generations.
Completely agree with you. As one would say kind of a micro VC myself, arguably angel. I'm invested in a number of startups, and I had to catch myself. And to your point, make myself aware that I was looking for this model, this Ivy League dropout who had pulled together technical resources because they were a technical founder. They had the time. They went to a private school, and so they learned these things. And if you didn't do that, if you didn't take that path, you couldn't be at that state. So their journey had been different. Not to say it wasn't a great journey, but they were at a different place. And so I judged the founders at this even kind of keel. And I had to catch myself and say, well, this founder who grew up in the inner city, who made it to institutions they arguably, if we went back in time, wouldn't have been at because they weren't allowed there. They have built something, and it looks almost, it's almost there. It's almost at that kind of same grade, if you will. And so I don't think of it as, I am not looking for the best founder. I'm trying to evaluate founders based upon their journey and what they've built in that journey. And I saw the trajectory of that underrepresented founder as kind of like they're climbing a mountain and they're almost to the top. Whereas another founder, it's like, okay, well, you're climbing too, but yeah, I almost could expect more. And so I didn't want to pass up those opportunities. And I think those are the opportunities I've recently looked at more frequently. And I think, I need to expand my aperture and look more at those women founders. So let's talk about some of those projects or opportunities that you see that investors should be giving a second look. Or, you mentioned Total Tribe, right? And we could talk about, the first woman to found a kind of an American city. The architects that came behind her, all of, as I learn more about Miami, I figure out there's a lot more influence from women than other cities. And so as we talk about Miami and broader than Miami, can we talk about some of those opportunities you see?
Yeah, I think so. In the invest pillar, right, when we think about what are the opportunities for women within that category, I think to your point is that there is a different way that we may assess deals. Of course, I think there are standards in place that we always want to think about, what's the market size? What are we seeing in terms of customer retention? What's the product? What is the need for the product? But this part is where personal experience can really come into play. So when we think about Web3 and, the aspects that blockchain technology or metaverses or AI really open up, there's some interesting things when you think about gendered personal experience. So, even if we just think about metaverse, right? And they're, instead of just going to a company's website and getting to know the company there, I'm going to go into their metaverse experience. Well, there are a different sort of way that women may look at a personal sort of representation in a metaverse because maybe we have a higher level or have experienced more pain points around scrutiny of our bodies, of our representation, of, the way we are physically presented. That insight then is an additional fuel to that investment thesis and the way that women can look at deals. Women are also, there's tons of studies that show how much higher our vocabulary is, how many more words we use per minute. So if you think about AI, what is AI? AI is a communication tool. It's a prompt. You are scripting, things to a prompt. Well, hey, we're really good at that already. So there are aspects of Web3 that our gendered reality is an asset. And I think as women start to look at what they want to invest in, this is where we can lean in on our personal experiences and make some savvy investment choices. And then this also goes to the other category of build, right, to join a team. There are folks who are looking at career changes and, want to get in on the ground level, building and being part of teams. And I also think this is a great call to action for women in that aspect, right? Is using that personal experience and then our skills in these categories within teams that are building on Web3.
Those are great points. Those are great points. And I, as I think about the metaverse, you're right. If we're basically creating this new reality, like, literally a virtual reality, a different perspective than what we have in real life, then it is abnormal to just have a male perspective of it. And so, from that perspective, I would assume that VCs, right, would be looking to augment some of that experience, if not half of that experience, right, to kind of equate it to the reality of where we are now. I would expect for half of the kind of inputs to come from women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's unfortunately too many examples of this in history when women have not been at the table and products have been created. The most glaring example is crash test dummies who were tested on male sized bodies, that then when car companies put airbags on the road, and females were getting into car accidents and they were dying at these insane rates, and the companies are going, we don't understand, what we tested our airbag deployment on these crash test dummies. Well, the crash test dummy specs were sent to the average man. And so, I mean, these have true real life consequences. So I think that opened people's eyes. But it's funny, to your point of we got a long way to go. It's like almost we forget that happened, right? And we can't let products be built when groups who are going to use them are not represented.
Mm. Yeah, that's. I mean, I think of World of Women and how much value that project has brought to the NFT space, and so you take away that project, and you don't see, like, you see a lot of apes and mutants, and you don't see these like inviting shapes, right, and avatars, right, and so I think that's one example of, right, if we including myself, if we let guys just run amok and create whatever we want, it's a very kind of harsher reality in a sense. So, another pillar, collect. Can we talk about your perspective there, and maybe the taste you see or the perspectives you see in that pillar, that are different than what you see, just I would say otherwise throughout a male dominated industry.
Yeah. So I think, Web3 is at its core ownership of digital assets. And so when you're a collector of digital items and digital assets, those have value. Assets have value. And I think women are great at collecting, are great at finding things of value, are great at actually making things that could just seem, one dimensional, kind of come to life in a cool way. So I think about this with Web3, where we hear a lot, NBA Top Shots was one of the first big collections to really hit the market and grab people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I think people understand the collector mentality around trading and collecting sports memorabilia. Well, women also collect, trade fashion. We collect and trade our own types of memorabilia. We are great at scrapbooking memories and collecting memories and doing all those things. Well, you can do all of those things that we love to and sort of thrive at doing in Web3 as well. And so let's say, somebody doesn't want to create their own collection. They're maybe not in a position to invest and they don't want to join a team and build. Well, they can collect. They can own digital items and they can choose the ones that either speak to them personally, whether that's an art collection, right? And looking at a PFP, or whether that's saying, I think this fashion brand is really cool, or these digital earrings that I can wear in the metaverse are really cool, and
Mm.
collecting those items. So that's the fourth really opportunity and way that I see women can easily jump into the Web3 space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when I kind of think back at what women have created within Web2, I think about Whitney Wolfe Herd, founder, CEO of Bumble. I was fortunate to be a co manager in the IPO, and it was kind of, I would say, life changing for me to see this very um, intelligent, um, versatile leader taking a company public with a baby on her hip, and um, how normal that seemed once you saw that visual. So it was kind of normalized. At first, I was kind of taken aback, and then I said, "Well, yeah, she has kids. Like, why would I think that would right? It would be out of place." We saw Rihanna at the Super Bowl, and so you see these very um, um, incredible leaders who set the trends, who create, and who have monetized their perspectives, not only for themselves but for investors. And so I think that's also something that folks should think about, that it's not just a trend to support women. It's not kind of a movement. It's actually good practice. It's good investing. It's good for our economy and our world, because as from an investment standpoint, you can make outsized returns there, right? When you heard it's worth 2 billion, I think Rihanna is not far off. So and those are not outliers. They're others. And so I think my point is, I think we have yet to see that type of wealth be created in Web3 for women, but it's not far off. And I think the opportunity is for investors to find the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually want to call out something you've done twice so far in our conversation. I hope there are men who are listening to this. My guess is because this says opportunities in Web3 for women, maybe they have not tuned in. But I think it's really important that both men and women have take an active role in ensuring gender equity. And you have actually done two reflections where you have said, I thought this thing, I noticed this thing, and then I thought something else. That's allyship. That's an awareness of a gender imbalance occurring in your brain, and saying, okay, I noticed that gender imbalance just occurred. Now, why did I think that? And unpacking that, and then thinking something differently. And I hope that anyone who's listening heard that, noticed that, and can use that skill in their lives too. Because I do think that happens a lot in investing. It happens a lot in technology. It happens a lot in business, right? We just to say that we don't make snap judgments is an unrealistic statement. We all do, right? There is something that gets conjured in your head when you see a woman with a baby on her hip. That's nobody's fault. But the fact that you're able to say, okay, I thought this thing, and wait, can I change my thinking around that? We need more of that. And we need more of that, especially from our gentlemen who've been in positions of power, hold a lot of wealth, make decisions around investment, because they likely have had a similar group who's been around them their whole lives. And so we really need to open eyes to a new way of viewing things. So I just like real time wanted to acknowledge that that was happening because I think it's really important for people to see in action.
Thank you. It's a work in progress, right? As you know, and so I remain open and to perspectives and advice, and I think that it starts there. Um, let's shift gears a bit. I want to talk about what you've built because one, it's super cool, and how you've empowered women and educated at the same time. Um, and then how can we help? Zen Ledger, right? We have software. We try to make it easy, but there are hodlers out there. So for those that buy and hold, obviously we're cheering them on because as the space grows, we all win. But I want to understand more about what you've built and how we can help.
Yeah, so the educational community has grown, which is really wonderful to see, and in both in size but also in depth. So we, started really authentically after I produced a conference. Thousands of attendees came that got a lot of sort of coverage around that. So then I started getting questions from various female friends from all parts of my life who were saying, hey, what's this Web3 thing? What are NFTs? What's crypto? Should I get involved? So I actually started a group chat just to answer all their questions originally because I couldn't, handle them at volume. And now there's over 800 people in that chat asking questions
Wow.
all the time. And then we started holding events in person to walk them through the steps of how to do some of these things. So I started my career as an educator. I am a teacher at heart. And so we produce in-person educational events where we really walk people through, because as great as podcasts are, there's a lot of research that shows us people don't learn new things by just hearing it. They have to practice doing it, or kind of have a discussion based orientation to, is this right, is that right? So that's exactly what we do. And I mean, I think one of the ways Zen Ledger, other products in Web3, is we want to put those products in front of the community and show them how to use them in that very hands-on, interactive way at our events. And we love to do that at scale because we are pretty impetuous around solving this problem. And so we're actually hosting our anniversary in a few weeks in partnership with the mayor of the city of Miami and his wife. And so folks will have a chance to, test out different products in Web3, look at different, products that are being launched soon that are coming down the pike that maybe need to hire people. So we're just really working to get as much of those resources and knowledge in front of our community as possible so that they can learn and then be empowered to take whichever steps they are inspired to take.
I love it. And I'm not sure how many hours are in your day, but you've stretched them very well because I hear that you're building, and almost 1,000 women are tuned in, and the mayor, who has been very vocal, only selects the best conferences, the best events, the best allies, and so I know that with him as an ally, and with your platform and you leading it, that's great for Miami, but it's also great for the nation. And so, to the extent Zen Ledger can get involved, we love to show off what we have, which is software where we've tried to make it easy. And we have a number of women-led CPA firms, whether they're solopreneur or they have teams. And so we've launched our new tax pro suite where we empower CPAs to upsell, meaning it's easy for them to learn about Web3, crypto, taxes, in the way that it should be handled. We have an IRS partnership. And so I'd love to, again, continue the conversation, keep it centered around growth for both your platform, your community, um, and Web3 because, frankly, there's a lot of work to be done. I know we've spoken about this in the past that we got to rebuild a bit of trust, but I think you're leading the way to that.
Thanks. And yeah, I actually probably already do a lot of sharing about Zen Ledger because that's the tool that I used both for last year and with my preparation for this year. I part of why I chose that is because you guys have contracts with the IRS and multiple, right? Don't you have multiple? I think there was an article. So yeah, I think if folks are waiting to hear what the government is going to do, working with someone who's already working with the government is like, I feel like that's a good idea. So, and it's good to know the CPA product side of it, because I think, yes, there are a lot of folks who have, boutique businesses or solopreneurs who this would be a great additional resource for them. So that's good to know.
So it's been a pleasure. I will give you the last word if you have closing comments.
Just appreciate amplifying this message and also appreciate you all educating the masses. We have to do a lot more of that. And it shows when brands and companies say, okay, we're gonna, really put something tangible out there that helps to educate folks. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.